Now it's time to get started in Module 3, where you'll learn how to clean, transform, and load data into the data model. You'll learn the process of profiling and understanding the condition of your data. You'll learn how to identify anomalies, look at the size and shape of the data, and perform data cleaning and transforming steps to prepare the data for loading into the data model. We'll be using the sample Superstore Power BI desktop file that we created in the previous module during this module, so feel free to pause the video and get that file open. The first of the 3 lessons in this module is data shaping. Shaping data means transforming the data by renaming columns or tables, removing rows, setting the first row as headers, and so on. In this lesson, we'll be performing data transformation steps on the users table and the orders table. We're going to start by taking a look at the data that is in the users table. Remember, your view buttons are on the left side of your screen, and the second view button is data view. I am going to go ahead and click that button to get into the view. When I get in there, I want to go over to the Fields pane, and I want to click on the users table so I can see the data that's in it. A couple of things to point out. This table contains information about managers and their regions. So the first thing we're going to want to do is rename the table from users to managers. We notice that column 1 and column 2 are not good column headings for a table. It's not descriptive of the data in the columns. The data that's in the first row, region and manager, would make better column headings, and we'll make that change as well. The final change we're going to make is we decide we want to capture the manager's last names in this table, so we'll be adding a column to the table and we'll input their last names. Let's rename the users table. I'm in the Fields pane and I'm going to right-click on it, choose the rename options from the shortcut menu, and I'm going to just type managers and press enter for it to accept the change. Notice the organizational change in the Fields pane. All of your tables will always be listed there in alphabetical order. We'll have to go into Power Query Editor to promote the first row as column headings. In order to do that, we're going to go up to the Home tab of the ribbon. In the Queries group, we're going to click on Transform Data. Power Query Editor opens in its own separate window. Once you're in Power Query Editor, your tables are known as queries and they show up on the left side of the screen. What we're looking at right now is similar to Data View in the desktop in that we're seeing all of the columns in the orders table. On the left side, we're going to click on Managers. So that's our table of interest right now. A few other things I want to point out. On the right side of the screen, you have a query settings group. And in that group, you have properties. It includes the name of the query, in this case, managers. And underneath your properties, you have what are called applied steps. Just by switching to Power Query Editor, it performed 3 steps. It looked at the source, it did a navigation step, and it changed the type. You'll notice that Power Query Editor has its own ribbon, and we're on the Home tab of the ribbon. What we're looking for in the Transform group is the Use First Row as Headers button. When we click that icon, you'll notice that it promoted region and manager as the headings, and it got rid of column 1 and column 2. The most efficient way to create a column to hold the manager last names is to duplicate the manager column. I'm going to right-click on the manager column heading, and I'm going to choose Duplicate Column from the shortcut menu. Now I have my original manager column and manager copy column. We're going to rename these columns. I'm going to double click Manager, and I'm going to edit it so it says Manager First. And I'm going to press Enter after I make that edit so it accepts the change. Go ahead and rename Manager Copy to Manager Last. The last transformation step we'll take on the Managers table is to replace the first names with the last names in the Manager Last column. We have to do these individually in Power Query Editor. So I'm going to click the first Manager Last, which is Chris. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to choose Replace Values. It's already in the Replace With box, and Chris's last name is Evans. So I'm going to just type in Evans and click OK. We're going to replace Aaron's last name, and Aaron's last name is going to be Rogers. I'm going to just type that in Replace With and click OK. Go ahead and change Sam's last name to Smith and William's last name to Jackson. Every time we transform the data, you'll notice on the right side of the screen that the applied steps list got longer. Starting from when we promoted the headers, it added an entry for that, and everything after that is what we did. Duplicated column, renamed columns, replaced values, so on and so forth. If you do a step in here and you realize that it was a mistake, you can always go over to the applied steps, and when you hover over them, you'll see the red X. Or if you right click on a applied step, you can delete that step just by clicking delete, or you can delete that step and all of the steps afterwards from the shortcut menu. We're comfortable with the changes that we made, so we don't have to do anything with our applied steps at this point. Now we're going to perform some transformation steps on the orders query. So on the left side of the screen in the queries pane, I'm going to go ahead and click on orders. The first thing we want to do is decrease the data set by removing some columns. I'd like to direct your attention to the ribbon. On the ribbon, you have a Manage Columns group, and it has two icons, Choose Columns and Remove Columns. I very rarely use Remove Columns. This is why. Right now, the row ID column is the column that I am in, and if I click the Remove Columns button, it's going to remove that column for me. That may not be a column that I want to remove. Now, granted, if I did that by accident, I could go over to the right and there would be an applied step where I removed a column, and it would let me reverse the effect of that and get that column back. I use Choose Columns. It gives more control. I'm going to go ahead and click the Choose Columns icon. And the columns that we're going to remove, I'm going to uncheck the boxes in front of, are Row ID, Order Priority, Product Base Margin, and Quantity Ordered New. You may have to scroll down to see that one. So I'm unchecking the columns that I want removed and keeping the columns checked that I want to keep. I'm going to click OK at the bottom. If you look over at your applied steps, you have one now because we removed multiple columns, and it says removed other columns. If we happen to do that accidentally, we could do the X in the front of that applied step to get those columns back. The next step we're going to take on the orders query is to filter the data for just 5 particular states. I'm going to scroll across using my horizontal scroll bar at the bottom until I see the state or province field. And similar to Excel, in Power Query Editor, you have auto filter arrows next to each field heading. And you can use those arrows to filter and sort, very similar to what you do in Excel. I'm going to go ahead and click the auto filter next to state or province. And this is a good example of something to be on the lookout for. It only loads a limited amount of data in Power Query Editor. So whenever you go to the auto filter drop-down, always look at the bottom of the screen, and you may see a warning symbol, and it says list may be incomplete. If that's the case, you would want to load the rest of the list before doing your sort or filter to make sure you get accurate results. So I'm going to click on that Load More button in the bottom right, and the warning disappears, so I know that I'm looking at a list of all of the states that are available in this data set. We are going to uncheck Select All at the top of the list, and we want to filter for Arizona, so I'm going to check Arizona, California, Florida. I'm going to scroll down until I see New Jersey, and I'm going to check New Jersey and New York. And now I'm going to click OK. So now the data is filtered for just those 5 states. We decide that the last things we're going to do for right now is we're going to rename state or province column to state, and we're going to sort it in ascending order. So I'm going to just double click where it says state or province, and I'm going to edit it so it just says state. And remember to press enter or click away from that in order to save it. And then I'm going to click on the auto filter arrow, and right at the top I'm going to click on sort ascending. So now I have Arizona first. At this point, all of the transformation steps that we took in Power Query Editor for the managers and the orders query, those changes are only in Power Query Editor. If we want to get the changes down to our data model in Power BI Desktop, we're going to use the first button on the Home tab of the ribbon. If you click the upper half of the button, it will close Power Query Editor and apply the changes in the desktop. I'm going to click Close and Apply now. It switches you back over to the desktop, and you'll notice the yellow band. There were pending changes in your queries, and now it's updated. So we're still looking at the managers table in Data View, and we'll see the manager first and the manager last columns and the manager last names. Also, you'll notice that the column headings are promoted. Remember, we renamed the table in the desktop. On the right side, I'm going to look at the orders table, and you'll notice that, well, it's missing some columns, the columns that we decided to get rid of, but you'll notice that your state column is filtered for Arizona, California, and the other 3 states that we chose. What I'm going to do now is save the Power BI desktop file. Our next lesson, Enhancing the Data Model, is where we're going to merge information from the managers table into the orders table. Specifically, the 2 tables have a field in common, and that is the region field. You'll remember in our managers table, the managers are listed by the regions they represent. We decide that we would like the manager data in the same table as the orders data. In order to do that, we're going to need to go back to Power Query Editor. So on the Home tab of the ribbon, go ahead and click Transform Data, and the Power Query Editor window will open. You'll notice on the Home tab of the ribbon, in the Combine group, you have 2 choices that are available: Merge Queries and Append Queries. You also have sub-choices for each of those. When you click on the Merge Queries drop-down, you can see that you can either merge the queries or perform the merge and create a new query. We're going to select Merge Queries as New. We want to retain our original orders and managers queries and create a new one that gives us all the order information and the manager information in the same query. When we get into the merge box, you'll notice since I was on the orders query, the top one is orders. It has a small sample of the data set, and I'm going to scroll across until I see the region field, and I'm going to just click in it, letting it know that that is the common field. Underneath that, I'm going to select the drop down and select the managers table, and in the managers table, I'm also going to click in the region field. You'll notice at the very bottom of the screen, once you make those selections, it lets you know that it matches 2,428 rows from the first table. It also has above that join kind. Now, table joins can be a really intense topic, and we're going to spend a few moments talking about them before coming back into this box. Before we perform the merge, let's take a moment to review the different join types that are available in Power BI. This PowerPoint presentation is also in your video description, so you can reference it in the future. The default join type is left outer. That means it will return all the records from the first table and only the matching records from the second table. Our first table is the table that we listed first, which was the orders table. A right outer join is where it will return all of the records from the second table and only the matching records from the first. That's the type of join we're going to ultimately use. The other join types are listed on the slide. If you use a full outer join, it will return all the rows from both tables. An inner join would only return matching rows, so on and so forth. So in our merge dialog box, we want to change the join kind from left outer. I'm going to do the drop down and select right outer. You'll notice that the selection at the bottom, the check mark, updated. It matches 3 or 4 rows from the second table. We're going to go ahead and click OK. And now you'll notice that you have a new query on the left side of your screen, and it gives it a default name of Merge 1. That is the merged query. We still have our original orders and managers queries intact. And that's because we chose merge as new. In the new query, the information from the managers table is going to be in the far right column, so I'm just scrolling across. And the last column is called managers. It doesn't have an auto filter drop down arrow. It has an expand button in the column heading. And right now, the column is populated with the word table. What we want to see in the column is the region for each order. So we're going to click the expand arrow to the right of the column heading. And you'll notice this list. It says expand or aggregate. You'll learn about aggregates in a later module. Even though we already have a region column in the orders table, we want the region, manager first, and manager last names to come in. So we're going to just click OK in here as they're all checked. And you'll notice if you scroll to the right, you now have 3 additional columns: managers region, managers first, and managers last. Take a moment to change the managers.manager first and the managers.manager last column headings to just say manager first and manager last. You'll notice that the first record is for the central region and it's a null record. So we decide we're going to filter that out. I'm going to go to the managers.region auto filter arrow, I'm going to load more at the bottom because the list is incomplete. And I'm going to uncheck Central and click OK. So we're not seeing the null record. And we'll go back to Auto Filter Funnel now. And we'll sort the regions. Again, the list may be incomplete, so load more. And then sort them in ascending order. So we'll have East at the top of the list. To rename this query, we could right-click on it in the Queries pane and choose Rename, or because we're in Power Query Editor, we can rename it under Query Settings in Properties. So I'm going to click on the name Merge One there and select it, and I'm going to name it Orders by Region, and press Enter. We want to go ahead and close and apply our changes. So we're going to click the first button on the Home tab, and it will take us back to the desktop and apply all the changes that we just made. Go ahead and save your Sample Superstore desktop file. Now you'll get to try it yourself. You're going to want to merge the orders and returns tables together into a new query, and you're going to want to show the return status in that merged table. Go ahead and get started on that. You can see my results on my screen and compare them with yours. I filtered out the null values in the returns.status column just to clean up the data a bit more. Once you're done with that, go ahead and close and apply your changes and save Power BI desktop file again. At this point in your Fields pane, you'll notice that you have your Orders by Region merged query and your Returned Orders merged query showing over there. The last lesson in this module is data profiling. Power Query Editor has profiling tools that you can use that will give you an in-depth assessment of the quality of your data. We're going to go back to the Transform Data button on the Home tab of the ribbon. And when we get into Power Query Editor, go to the View tab on its ribbon. And you have a Data Preview group on the View tab with several different checkboxes. One of the checkboxes is always checked, and that's just showing white space. What we're going to do is we're going to review the checkboxes and their impact on your data, the information that can be gained from using them. I am going to check the box that says Column Quality. And I'll notice right underneath my column headings for each column, it's telling me whether the column is valid, whether there are errors in the column, or whether there are empty things in the column by percentage. Good insight into the data that's in your columns. The next checkbox is column distribution. I'm going to leave column quality checked, and I'm going to check column distribution. And it expands that area underneath the column headings. It's showing me that I have 11 distinct values and 0 unique values in the discount column, for example. Each column is listed with distinct versus unique values, and you have the opportunity there to remove duplicates if necessary. The last checkbox is column profile that I'm going to cover. That opens a panel at the bottom of the screen underneath your data set, and it's giving you column statistics, the count, errors, whether they're empty, distinct, unique, not a number, so on and so forth. And there's a little graphic that's showing the value distribution in that particular column. Now, the column that I'm in right now is the discount column, the first column in the orders table. So if I wanted to see distribution information for unit price, I would just click in that column. And that's how you can profile your data in Power Query Editor. I'm going to go back to the Home tab of the ribbon, and this time I'm going to click the Close and Apply drop-down, the first drop-down, And I'm going to just close Power Query Editor without applying the changes. And I will save my Power BI desktop file. Notice how frequently I save the desktop file. That's where your data model is stored. To recap Module 3, we applied data shape transformations by removing columns, promoting column headers. We duplicated a column, renamed columns, and replaced the data in a duplicated column. We also learned how to filter and sort columns. We enhanced the structure of the data by merging queries into a new query so we could combine data from multiple tables. And we ended by profiling and examining our data through the Power BI Power Query Editor profiling group. Module 4 teaches the fundamental concepts of designing and developing a data model for proper performance and scalability. We'll also understand and tackle many of the common data modeling issues, including relationships, security, and performance. We'll continue using the sample Superstore Power BI desktop file that we created in previous modules. So what is data modeling? It can be defined as making the data you use in Power BI as accurate and intentional as possible. It is a series of processes, as you'll see play out in this module. This module has several lessons. We'll begin with working with tables, move on to dimensions and hierarchies, continue with creating model relationships and reviewing the model interface, and end with enforcing row-level security, also known as RLS. Lesson 1 is working with tables. Working with tables can mean many things. For starters, we're going to work with formatting some of the columns in the orders table. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at the data that's in the orders table in Data View, which is the second view button on the left side of your screen. When you go into Data View, you'll notice that it's showing the data for the first table in the Fields pane to the right. Click on the Orders table in your Fields pane, and now you're seeing the data in that table. Some of the formatting changes that we're going to want to make here is we're going to want the discount column to be formatted as a percentage. We're going to want unit priced and shipping cost columns to be formatted as currency, just to name a few of the changes we're going to want to make. We can do that right from the desktop. We don't have to do this in Power Query Editor. And the way that you do it from the desktop is go ahead and click anywhere in the discount column to select it, and you'll notice you'll get a new tab on the ribbon called Column Tools. Everything that we're going to want to do, we're going to do from the Column Tools ribbon tab. To get started, you've already selected anything in the discount column, so that is the active column. And on the Column Tools tab, in the Formatting group, you're going to go ahead and click the percentage icon. Very similar to Excel. So now the discounts are formatted as a percentage. And if we decide that we don't want any decimal places, right underneath percentage, we're going to change that 2 to a 0. And you can see the impact on the data. Now I'm going to click in the unit price column, and in the same formatting group, I'm going to click on the $ icon, which is the currency format. Go ahead and do the same thing for the shipping cost column, format it in currency. I'm going to use the Fields pane on the right to navigate to the next field that I want to format. So I'm going to click on Order Date, and it will take me to that column and have that column selected. We decide we don't want the day of the week as part of our date format. So on the Column Tools tab, same formatting group, this time we're going to go to the Format drop-down, and you're going to click on the format that just says March 14th, 2001. And the order date is formatted that way. Navigate to the Ship Date field and apply the same format. The last thing we're going to do in this lesson is categorize some location fields for mapping purposes. So we have region, state, city, and postal code fields in this data set. Later on, when you learn how to make visualizations on report pages, there are mapping visualizations that will give more data about a location if those location columns are categorized. So we're going to just select anything in the region column, and on the same Column Tools tab in the Properties group, you'll see the data category is uncategorized. Select the drop-down arrow, and you'll see the different things that you can categorize. So we're using location fields. We don't have a street address. We don't have a place in our data, but we do have a city. We have a region. We have a state, and we have a postal code. We'll use those fields in just a moment. But if you had latitude and longitude fields, you'd be able to categorize them. If you want a web URL to be within your data, you could use a web URL and categorize it. If you have a URL for an image and you want that image to show, you can use the image URL, and it also allows for barcodes. We're in the region field. Let's go ahead and navigate to the state field and go back to the uncategorized drop-down. We're going to categorize the state as state or province. Go ahead and categorize the city and postal code fields appropriately. Because postal code is a numeric field, it only gave you the option of postal code or barcode. The only effect you'll see of your categorization is in the fields list. If you notice, city has a globe icon in front of it, as does postal code and state. Again, when you learn how to create report visualizations, you'll see how the categorizations help on maps. Lesson 2 is dimensions and hierarchies, a subtopic of working with tables. To get started, we're going to talk about breaking down your tables. It's an optimizing performance tip, and when applicable, it's very useful. One large table is not the answer for an effective data model. So what does that mean? You break a large table down into 2 or multiple tables. Let's talk about fact tables first. Fact tables keep numeric data that might be aggregated in reporting visualizations, for example, sales and profits. Dimension tables keep descriptive information that can slice and dice the data in the fact table. They require a key field, which you'll learn about very shortly. So for example, data that should be in dimension tables would be customer information and product information. The golden rule for usable data is that you should not have fact and descriptive fields in the same table. By breaking down your tables more efficiently, you'll optimize the performance of your data set. Let's go ahead and save our file. We're going to start breaking down the orders table. If you'll notice, the orders table has customer information in it, product information in it, and it also has order information in it if you scroll to the right. This is a good example of a large table that contains both fact and dimension columns. We're going to transform this data by working in Power Query Editor. So on the Home tab of the ribbon, go ahead and click on Transform Data to open that window. We are going to make a copy of the orders query and transform the copy into a customer's dimension query. In the Queries pane on the left, go ahead and right-click on Orders and choose Copy. Right-click anywhere in the Queries pane and choose Paste. We're going to remove the columns that we do not want from the Orders To instance, the pasted version, and we're going to do that by using Choose Columns on the Home tab of the ribbon, as we did in a previous module. The first thing I'm going to do in Choose Columns is uncheck Select All Columns, and then I'm going to select the columns that we want in the Customer's Dimensions query: Customer ID, Customer Name, Customer Segment. We're going to grab Region, State, City, Postal Code, and go back up to the top and select Discount as well. And click OK at the bottom. So now we only have those fields. And we said that in a dimension table, you need to have a key field. A key field, also known as primary key, is a unique identifier that makes each record unique. So we already have one in this table. It's the customer ID field. Each customer is assigned their own unique ID, and we'd like that to be the first column. So we're going to click and hold on the customer ID heading and drag it to the left so it's the first column. Go ahead and make customer name the second column. Then city, state, zip, or postal code rather, and region. And again, this is the order of the columns. And then we'll have customer segment and discount as the last column. The last thing we'll do is give the query a more appropriate name. So over to the right in the Properties group, I'm going to select Orders To, and you'll see this convention sometime. So I'm going to type capital D-I-M for dimension, and then capital C, customers. You'll see it identified as a dimension table by the name on occasion. I'm going to press Enter to make that change happen. Now you get a chance to try this on your own. Make another copy of the orders table, and you're going to want to choose the 4 columns that begin with the word product and include them only in the new table. I'm going to rename the query Dim Products over in the Properties group and press Enter. Now, we said that a dimension table has to have a key field. In this case, we don't have a key field. I'm going to show you how to create one in just a moment. First, let's rearrange these columns. We want product name to be the first column. After that, we need another column that we can assign a numeric value to each unique product name. In order to do that, we're going to go up to Add Column tab on the ribbon, and in the General group, you're going to click on the drop down next to Index Column, and we're going to choose Custom. We're going to say we want the starting number for our products to be 001, and we want to increment by 1 and click OK. So notice it dropped off the zeros, and that's fine. We're going to move that index column so it is the first column in this data set. And each product name has its own unique index number. The last thing we need to do here is save our changes and load them back into our data model in Power BI Desktop. So we're going to go to the Home tab of the ribbon and click Close and Apply. Now that our data is loaded into the data model, let's expand Dim Products table in the Fields pane, and we decide we want to rename that index field that we added. We want to rename it Product ID. So in the Fields pane, I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to choose Rename, and just type Product ID and press Enter. And we'll go ahead and save our desktop file. The next part of this lesson is creating a hierarchy. We're going to create a hierarchy based on the region field in the orders table. A hierarchy is a container of sorts, a way of grouping related fields together. When you're creating a hierarchy, you want to start with the broadest category in terms of column and end with the narrowest category. So in order to do this, we're going to right-click on region in the Fields pane under the Orders table, and we're going to select Create Hierarchy. If you notice now, right underneath the region field, there is a collapsed region hierarchy, and I'm going to click the expand arrow, and you'll see that it only contains the field that we based the hierarchy on, in this case, region. So now we want to add the next broadest category after region would be state. So in the Fields pane, I'm going to right-click on the state field, and I'm going to hover over Add to Hierarchy and click on Region Hierarchy. We're going to add 2 more fields to the hierarchy. We're going to go ahead and right-click on City, Add to Hierarchy, Region Hierarchy, and do the same for the postal code field. Now when you look at the region hierarchy, it contains region, state, city, and postal code. The only indication you have of the hierarchy is the symbol in front of region hierarchy, and this is something that you won't see until we get to reporting visualizations in a future module. It gives you the ability to drill down on a visualization through the levels in a hierarchy. Go ahead and save your file. In Module 2, you learned that Power BI has the capability of detecting existing relationships when you bring data in from a database or maybe from an Excel Power Pivot file. Sometimes, though, when you're bringing in from a regular Excel file, it is not going to be able to detect relationships because they don't exist. We're going to do a deeper dive in this lesson, creating model relationships. You'll hear the term relationships and cardinality used interchangeably. Basically, there are 4 types of relationships that are supported in Power BI. One-to-one relationship, represented by 1:1 as seen on the slide. An example of that would be one manager has one region, if the managers tables and the regions table were separate tables. The one-to-many relationship is the most common. It's represented by 1:**. An example would be one customer has many orders, 2 separate tables. The many-to-one relationship is the same as one-to-many, it's just in the opposite direction, and it's represented as *:1. Many-to-many relationships are the least common. They're represented by asterisk, colon, asterisk. We don't have a situation on our data that would require a many-to-many relationship, but the example would be many students are in many classes. I'm going to switch back over to the sample Superstore Power BI file for this lesson. Let's start by reviewing the relationship settings in Power BI. I'm going to click on the File tab, Options and Settings, and then Options. In the Options button, underneath Current File, I'm going to click on Data Load. We briefly reviewed these settings in Module 2, but they're worth going over again now. Under Relationships, if you're bringing it in from an Access database or from a Power Pivot data model, the first checkbox is defaulted to being on. So Power BI will automatically import relationships from data sources on first load, as you saw when we loaded the Access database. The third checkbox is also a default. It will auto-detect new relationships after data is loaded. So if we load data and then we change some of the data and it creates a relationship with another table, it will auto-detect that for you. I always like to check the second box, which is update or delete relationships when we refresh the data in Power BI. Again, that's just for the file that you're working in. The top two checkboxes are defaulted to being checked. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Next, we'll take a look at Model View, and that's the third view button on the left, where you can see the relationships that have been created or where you go to create relationships. So we're going to go over to Model View. And we can see that some relationships have been created in this file. First thing I'm going to do is collapse the properties and the fields panes so I get more space. And I'm going to scroll to the right and see if there are any other table cards that are out of my view. And I'm going to just move them as far left as possible so I don't have to continue to scroll. You'll notice that Power BI already created a relationship with our new DIM customers table, and we're going to explore that relationship now. The join line is the line that's going between the two tables. One thing that might make it easier is I'm going to just move the customers card underneath the orders card. And you can see that it's joined to the orders table. It is also joined to the managers table. If I hover over the join line between DIM customers and orders, you'll notice in DIM customers, it's highlighting the customer ID field. That is the matching field between the two tables. We decide that we're going to focus on our original orders, returns, and managers tables. So I'm going to hide the remaining tables. In each table's title bar, there is a little eyeball symbol, and if you click on it, it will put a slash through it. So it's kind of hiding the table. You'll see this when we go back to report view. These won't show in the fields panes. We're also going to hide returned orders, DIM products, and orders by region. And I'm going to just move those kind of over to the right, the ones that I'm not going to use right now. Notice the relationship lines stay intact when you're moving them. As we look at these three cards, orders, returns, and managers, I'm going to size them so I can see all of the fields in each card. Makes it a little bit easier to work with when you don't have to scroll for a field or it's out of your view. And we see that we have a relationship between orders and managers. It made it a many-to-many relationship as indicated by the asterisk on each card. We want to create a relationship between orders and returns. It has to be a matching field. In this case, the order ID field is in both tables. Order ID is in orders and it's in the returns table. To create the relationship, I'm going to click and hold on order ID in the orders table and drag it and drop it on top of order ID in the returns table. And you'll notice that it automatically created the relationship and it made it a one-to-many relationship. One return can be on many orders, is what that is saying. If we want to see details about the relationship, we can double-click the join line in between the two tables. And you'll see in the upper half of the Edit Relationship screen, it's showing a subset of the orders table data, and order ID is the matching field. Order ID is also the matching field in the returns table. And it's a many-to-one or one-to-many type relationship. We can click OK to close the Edit Relationship window. Let's go ahead and review the model interface. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is the Manage Relationships button on the Home tab of the ribbon. Let's go ahead and click on Manage Relationships, and the dialog box opens. Good tip about this dialog box. If you go and do major table transformation, come back to Model View, click on Manage Relationships, and at the bottom, click the Auto Detect button. So it will let you know if it found no new relationships, as in our case, or it will create the relationships if it found any. We're going to close that dialog box. On the right side of your screen, expand both the Properties pane and the Fields pane. In the Fields pane, expand the Orders table and click on the Order Date field. You'll notice that the Properties pane has updated to indicate that you're looking at properties for the Order Date field. In those properties, it has a formatting section. So when we changed our date format for the order date and the ship date, we did that in Data View. We could also do a similar thing in this view. I've selected the returns card, and when I look at the properties, you'll notice that it's about the returns card, actually the returns table. You'll see that that table is highlighted in the fields list as well. If you wanted to, you could put in a description for your table. You can put in synonyms for your table. The synonyms tie into a feature that you'll learn when we get to creating visualizations called Q&A, question and answer. It's an analysis feature that's built into Power BI. It's available in both the desktop and the service. And so if someone were to type in a question using any of your synonyms, they would get results. The row label field is used for Q&A as well. Key column, normally it detects the key column in a table. There are instances where it might get it wrong. For example, in the orders table, you have the order ID, you have customer ID. They're both key columns. One is for the orders table, one is for the customers table. So in this case, it's getting it okay, but if you needed to change it, you could change it here. We already saw what happens. We hid the tiles by using the eye icon in the upper right corner of their title bars. And featured table is an interesting feature that you can use here. It's actually pretty cool. Once this data set is published to the service, then the featured table takes effect. A featured table is an easy way to share specific table information with other users, either through workspaces in the online spaces, or You can actually get stuff into Excel this way via data types in Excel. Let's go ahead and save our file again and switch back over to Data View. Now that we're back in Data View, we can see in our Fields pane to the right that the 4 tables we marked as hidden in Model View have that eyeball with the slash through it in the Fields pane. If we go to Report View, our first view button, we'll notice those tables are hidden from our view. Our final lesson in this module is row-level security. RLS in Power BI can be used to restrict data access for given users. Filters restrict data access at the row level, and you can define filters within roles. In the online service, members of a workspace have access to data sets in the workspace. RLS doesn't restrict this type of data access. In the desktop, you set up the security roles, and in the service, you would assign users to those roles, as you'll see in this next lesson. We're going to set up a role that allows users that are assigned to that role to view order information just for the East region. To do that, we're going to be using the Modeling tab on the ribbon. And in the Security group, go ahead and click on Manage Roles. To create our role, we'll start by clicking the Create button, and we're going to name the role East. In the center of the Manage Roles box, you're going to click on the Orders table to let it know that you're using a field from the Orders table. Over to the right, you're going to put in a simple DAX expression. DAX is Data Analysis Expression. It's a formula language, and you'll learn more about it in the next module. In the meantime, you're going to click in that Table Filter DAX expression box on the right, and you're going to type an open square bracket, as field names need to be enclosed in square brackets. You're going to type region and a closing square bracket. Then you're going to type the equal sign, and in double quotes, because it's a text-based field, you're going to type East and close the double quotes. So we're saying for this role that we're calling East, only allow users that we assign to it to see the Eastern region information from the Orders table. In the lower right-hand corner, you're going to go ahead and click Save. Go ahead and set up another role for the West region in the Orders table. Power BI is really good about letting you know when you have errors in expressions, but when you want to check before it notifies you, in the upper right corner of the Manage Roles box, I can click on the check mark which says Verify DAX Expression. If it found anything wrong with my expression, it would let me know at this time. I'm going to go ahead and save. To test your roles, also on the Modeling tab, right next to Manage Roles button, is View As. When you click on View As, you'll see your East and your West. You'll also have Other User. Go ahead and check the box in front of East and click OK. You'll notice the yellow band at the top of your screen that says Now Viewing as East. Go back to Data View, and when you click on the Orders table, you'll see that it's only showing the East region. We're going to click on Stop Viewing in the yellow band, and now we're seeing the full data set. We're going to save our desktop file, and then the last button on the Home tab is Publish. Let's go ahead and publish it to the online service. You can use my workspace. That's the one we'll all have in common. I'm going to go ahead and publish it to my Power BI video workspace and then click the select button. You'll have the Publishing to Power BI splash screen on your window. And when the data set is successfully published, you'll see success. You can click on the link right underneath success to go ahead and open that file in the cloud-based service. Power BI service opens in report view, and we don't have any reports. What we want to do is go to our workspace. So the bottom icon on the left side will take you to your workspace that you saved this stuff to. So it saved a report, which is currently empty. It also saved the data set. To assign roles to our east and west that we set up in the desktop, we're going to hover over the data set and we're going to go to the vertical ellipsis More Options button. And we're going to select Security. On the left side of row level security, we'll see the two groups that we created, East and West. They both have 0 members in the group. In the members area, you can use distribution groups, mail-enabled groups, security groups, individual email addresses. You just cannot use groups created in Power BI. I'm going to enter an email address from my organization and click the Add button. After I do that, I'm going to click Save at the bottom so it saves that person to my East group. Go ahead and add someone from your organization to your West group and save. Switch back over to your desktop file and click Got It on the Publishing to Power BI window. Go ahead and save your file. To recap this module, you learned about the basics of data modeling through working with tables. We implemented dimensions and hierarchies. We defined relationships in Cardinality and enforced row-level security, setting up the roles in Power BI Desktop and assigning the users in the Power BI service.